Come into the garden, Maud, for the black bat, night, has flown. Come into the garden, Maud. I am here at the gate alone. Wait, hold on. This is insane.
Read that again, slowly.
Come into the garden, Maud.
No, I know that line. That's literally the hook from that Car Seat Headrest song. The one that's like, come into the garden, Maud. I'm not here. This isn't happening.
Oh, God, you're right. The breakup anthem. The one every depressed indie kid played on loop in 2016 while staring at a ceiling.
I definitely used it as a voicemail ringback for an ex. So you're telling me Tennyson wrote the original Sad Boy Spiral?
1855. Alfred Lord Tennyson. The whole poem is about a guy in love with a woman named Maud. She dies, he descends into madness, then goes off to fight in the Crimean War. It's basically a concept album.
So the blueprint for every emo mixtape is Victorian poetry. The Black Bat of Night is just a predecessor to I'm in the garden alone in my feelings. I feel seen.
The whole thing reads like a dude texting his ex at 2 a.m. Come into the garden, Maud is the 19th century equivalent of you up?
And the garden is always a metaphor. Will Toledo just repurposed it for his own queer heartbreak, but the structure is identical. Idealized woman, isolated speaker, garden is liminal space of longing. Literature majors really never change.
You know what's wild? The poem was massively popular in its day. People memorized it, recited it in parlors. Victorians were just sitting around weeping into their tea about this fictional girl Maud like she was their parasocial bestie.
They were Team Maud before hashtags. It was the original brat summer, but if Charlie XCX had tuberculosis and a cravat.
I mean, the poem literally ends with the narrator going off to war, hoping to die and rejoin Maud. That's a Lana Del Rey lyric waiting to happen.
I will bury myself in the glorious crime of war. Tennyson said, let me yeet my sorrows into Crimea. I'm impressed.
What gets me is we had a whole summer of brat and very demure, and we thought we invented emotional chaos. Yet here's a poet laureate from the 1850s doing the exact same thing. A breakup so devastating it collapses the self, and then you go do something stupidly dramatic.
It's like we just keep recycling aesthetics of despair. I'm not mad about it.
You're just mad you didn't discover Tennyson first.
A little. I thought my heartbreak was original, but it turns out it was ghostwritten by a bearded Victorian. Next you'll tell me Taylor Swift's All Too Well has a source text in a forgotten 17th century sonnet sequence.
I guarantee you, somewhere in the Bodleian Library, there's a manuscript titled An Elegy for Madeline that starts with, I walked through the door with you, the air was cold.
The universal experience is humiliating. Tennyson even prefigures the era of drunk posting. The whole poem is a dramatic monologue delivered by a guy who's an unreliable narrator and probably wearing a stained waistcoat.
It's basically if you gave a Reddit Am I the Asshole thread a rhyme scheme and a grudge against a rival suitor.
Hold on. There's a rival suitor?
Yeah, a new-made lord who Maud's brother wants her to marry. The narrator considers killing him. It's toxic, it's obsessive, it's 1855's finest incel literature.
So, Car Seat Headrest just turbocharged the existing torment with a fuzz bass and a layer of self-loathing. Respectful.
I kind of want to text my ex, come into the garden, Maud, right now, just to see what happens.
Please don't. I will block you on behalf of all past and future lovers. But also, can we do a segment where we rank breakup anthems by century? Bet the 19th century smashes.
That's a Patreon tier if I've ever heard one. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back.
And we're back. So I spent the whole ad break listening to that song you dropped in the group chat, the one where the guy just wants to be dead in bed while his brain screams at him. I don't know if I've ever felt more personally attacked by a bedroom pop track.
Oh, God. Yeah. I'm lying here pretending to be dead so you'll check on me. But you went out instead. That's devastating. And it's sitting at like 17 million streams, which means millions of people are just like curled up in the fetal position, nodding along.
Right. It's the #1 anthem for anybody who's ever dramatized their own grief, hoping someone would notice. I mean, my entire freshman year of college was basically one long performance of pretending to be dead. You just lie there, blankets up to your chin, and wait for your roommate to come in and go, "Hey man, you okay?" It's the most passive-aggressive cry for help in history.
Okay, but from a purely physiological standpoint, pretending to be dead is a real thing in the animal kingdom. Tonic immobility. Some species literally play dead to avoid predators. Sharks will go into a trance if you flip them over. It's a last-ditch stress response. So a teenager doing it after a breakup is, what, an evolutionary holdover? Your body's like, I have been socially rejected. Might as well be inert so the larger predators don't eat me.
Yes, your brain interprets getting ghosted on Snapchat the same way a possum sees a Ford F-150. The predator is the indifferent X, and your bedroom is just a roadside drainage ditch. That checks out. But what gets me is the second line, begging my head not to be so full. That's the real horror show. You're lying there immobile, but your mind is running a 24-hour breaking news ticker of every stupid thing you've ever said.
The default mode network in overdrive. That's the part of the brain that activates when you're not focused on a task. It's where rumination lives. And at night, when all external stimuli are gone, it just freewheels into a greatest hits reel of your own cringe. There's a reason insomnia and heartbreak are such good friends. Your prefrontal cortex loses its grip on the limbic system, and suddenly you're 2 a.m. drafting apologies to people you haven't spoken to since 4th grade.
Which is why I think the song is less about a person and more about the machine the singer keeps asking about. Who runs the machine when I sleep? That's the line that rattled me, because you can read it two ways. One, the biological machine, the autonomic nervous system that keeps your lungs inflating while you're unconscious. But two, the machine of everything else, the algorithm, the cultural input, the constant hum of late capitalism that somehow never takes a nap.
Well, the science is pretty clear on the first one. The machine is run by a bunch of ancient, unreasonably competent brainstem structures. The medulla oblongata, the hypothalamus, they're like the graveyard shift at a nuclear plant. They don't care about your breakup. They're just keeping the lights on, regulating your core temperature, cycling you through REM so you can dream about showing up to school naked.
But that's not the vibe of the song. The song sounds like someone who doesn't trust the graveyard shift. It's like, who's at the switchboard while I'm down? And I think that's a very adolescent species of terror. The realization that the world doesn't pause when you close your eyes. The group chat is still popping off. The ex is posting Instagram stories from a party you weren't invited to. The machine keeps churning out content designed to make you feel like a lonely piece of garbage. That's the teenage breakup industrial complex right there.
Okay, I'll bite. Define teenage breakup industrial complex.
It's the entire infrastructure that monetizes adolescent heartbreak, and it's never been more efficient. In the 19th century, you'd write a tortured sonnet, maybe die of consumption. Now, Spotify's algorithm detects a 5% drop in your listening tempo and immediately pumps you a sad indie bedroom playlist curated by someone paid in exposure. You get served ads for weighted blankets and therapy apps that cost $14 a month. TikTok shows you a girl in a flannel staring out a rainy window, and suddenly you're buying a moth-eaten sweater from a dropshipper. The song gets sucked into 1,000 songs to cry to at 3 a.m. playlists, and the cycle feeds itself. It's a whole economy built on the emotional wreckage of 19-year-olds.
I'm not going to pretend that's wrong, but I will say there's also something genuinely cathartic about hearing someone else articulate that feeling. The line about being dead in bed, that's not just a teenager being dramatic. The clinical side of me wants to point out that playing dead in humans often signals a kind of shutdown, a dissociative state. People who've experienced trauma sometimes describe feeling like they're watching their own body from the ceiling. So when a 17-year-old writes a lyric about lying perfectly still, hoping the world will notice, they're accidentally describing a real psychological phenomenon.
And that's why the machine is so insidious. It takes that genuine, shattering moment of dissociation and slots it into a content chute. Before you've even processed the breakup, the algorithm has already categorized you as a high-engagement melancholic and started testing thumbnails on you. You're not just sad, you're a valuable consumer segment. Pretending to be dead isn't a cry for help anymore, it's a branding opportunity.
I hate that you're probably right. But I want to go back to the question itself. Who runs the machine when I sleep? Because if you push past the capitalist dread, there's something almost spiritual about it. Every night we hand the controls over to some other version of ourselves. Whoever is in charge when you're dreaming makes creative decisions your waking self would never approve of. You're processing emotion, consolidating memory, basically doing system maintenance. But the self doing the maintenance is not the self that reads the terms and conditions. It's a little eerie.
Yeah, it's like I'm not the CEO of my own consciousness. I'm just the daytime PR representative. Meanwhile, the true weirdos down in engineering are running experiments while I'm unconscious. I had a dream last week where my high school biology teacher was also a coat rack. That's not a data point I asked for, but apparently the machine thought it was essential.
There's a theory called the activation synthesis hypothesis that basically says dreams are your brainstem firing random neural signals and your cortex frantically trying to knit them into a coherent story. So your coat rack biology teacher is just a narrative being desperately stitched together by your prefrontal cortex after the fact. The machine is just glitching creatively.
So the answer to who runs the machine is nobody, and that's worse. It's a random signal generator that we interpret as meaning. And the teenage breakup version of that is staring at your phone hoping for a text that explains why you feel hollow. And the only notification you get is Duolingo shaming you for skipping your Spanish lesson. The machine is indifferent.
But also strangely compassionate in a blind, evolutionary way. Sleep gives your brain a chance to do some emotional first aid. There's research showing that REM sleep helps strip the painful charge from emotional memories. You wake up and the breakup still happened, but the memory has been, sanded down a little. The machine is running a deburring process on your heart, whether you like it or not.
That's a very hopeful read. I choose to believe the sanding process is being administered by a Spotify-branded industrial sander that keeps auto-playing Phoebe Bridgers, and I wake up feeling slightly less devastated, but also slightly more convinced I need to buy flannel sheets.
So maybe the real answer to the song's question is a coalition of the brainstem, the parasympathetic nervous system, and a ruthless music recommendation engine. That's who runs the machine. And if the songwriter ever figures that out, I think they'll be okay. The pretending to be dead phase usually passes once the REM cycles kick in.
Or once you realize your ex posted a picture of a new cat, and it's ugly. That helps too. Should we rank that song among the breakup anthems? I'm putting it solidly in the 21st century, right next to I'm Not Okay, I Promise. Very high marks for emotional paralysis, low marks for sleep hygiene.
We'll do a full taxonomy next episode. For now, I think the ad break machine is about to kick in. Let's let it run.
It never sleeps. And we're back. Marty's still staring at the ceiling. I think we broke him.
I'm not broken, I'm processing. The ad break machine reminded me of our mortgage, which is a different kind of sad song. But you know what isn't? That Car Seat Headrest track you made me listen to? Maud Gone? I've had it on loop for 3 days. My Spotify Wrapped is going to look like a cry for help.
Good. Let the algorithm know you're suffering. It'll serve you better ads. Probate lawyers, meal kits for one, weighted blankets that feel like a hug from someone who definitely isn't coming back.
Right, but here's the thing. I tracked down the original poem, Tennyson's Maud, 1855, Victorian England, and it's the exact same emotional architecture. Guy loses girl, guy loses mind, guy yells at flowers. Will Toledo just swapped the garden for a parking lot and the carriage for a Honda Civic. The market for melancholia hasn't moved an inch in 170 years.
It's the safest asset class in human history. Sadness futures are always green. Empires collapse, currencies hyperinflate, but someone staring out a rain-streaked window while a sad bastard with a guitar whispers Maud will always clear. Always. Tennyson knew it. He made a killing off In Memoriam before Maud. He was basically the Phoebe Bridgers of the Crimean War.
Okay, but let's talk about the economics of this, because you know I can't help myself. There's a reason the sad song market never saturates. It's not just that people are always sad. It's that sadness is a positional good. You consume it precisely because someone else's sadness, properly performed, validates your own in a way that feels more authentic than just feeling it alone.
Wait, go back. A positional good? Like a Birkin bag? My grief is more exclusive than your grief?
Sort of. A positional good's value comes from how it ranks relative to others. But with sadness aesthetics, the ranking isn't about more sad versus less sad. It's about more real versus less real. The authentic sadness signals status. I'm not just sad. I'm sad in a way that can't be captured by a major laser drop. Car Seat Headrest's version of Maud works because it sounds like it was recorded in a Kia Sorento at 3 a.m. The lo-fi production is the certificate of authenticity. Tennyson's version was authentic because it was considered mad. It got panned by critics for being too morbid, too unhinged. That critical disgust was his lo-fi filter.
So the market demands increasingly esoteric performances of sadness to prove it's not just a commodity, even though it absolutely is a commodity.
Exactly. And that creates a weird arms race. You start with Someone Like You by Adele, universally recognized sadness product. But then that becomes too mainstream, so you move to Bon Iver. Then that gets co-opted by every TV show about a brooding detective, so you move to Mount Erie's A Crow Looked at Me, an album so devastatingly sad about his wife's death from cancer that you can't even listen to it without feeling like you're intruding. And then where do you go after that? You go to TikTok, where teenagers stitch together Mitski songs with clips from Wong Kar-wai movies and a caption that just says Maud. They're not even using words anymore. It's pure sadness semiotics.
See, this is where I get off your regulated market train and point out that the arms race is a feature of capitalism specifically, not sadness generally. Medieval peasants didn't need an increasingly obscure vinyl B-side to validate their grief. They had the church, they had folk songs that everyone knew, and they had a life expectancy of 35. The sadness industrial complex, and I'm including Tennyson here, emerges when you have a leisure class with enough time and disposable income to curate their emotional state like a bookshelf.
But folk songs are the original sadness product. Barbara Allen has been making people cry since the 1600s, and it's the same story. Boy loves girl, girl rejects boy, boy dies of heartbreak, girl dies of guilt. It's the 17th century version of Maud. The market is eternal, Rollo. It just changes formats.
The format is the point, though. A folk song exists in a social context. You sing it with other people, in a room. The sadness is communal. What you're describing with the TikTok Mitski mashup is atomized, algorithmic sadness. It's not we're sad together. It's I am performing sadness for an audience of strangers who will scroll past it in 1.7 seconds. And that performance is the feeling. The medium is the melancholia.
Okay, but Tennyson's Maud was also performative. He wrote it for publication, for an audience. The speaker in the poem literally goes mad in public. He monologues at a flower bed. The only difference between Tennyson's speaker and a TikTok sad boy is the bit rate.
True, and I'll grant you that the Victorian era invented the modern sadness market. The cult of sentimentalism, the mourning jewelry made from dead people's hair, the popularity of consumption as a romantic disease. They were the original sad girls. But they also had Charles Dickens reading his own death scenes to sold-out crowds. There's a direct line from Little Nell dying in the old curiosity shop to Will Toledo singing I Don't Want to Go Insane on repeat for 8 minutes. Both of them knew exactly what they were selling.
And the buyers keep buying. That's my whole thing. You can't regulate this away. You can't structural reform people out of wanting to feel their feelings through a proxy. It's one of the few truly inelastic demands in the human psyche. Interest rates go up, egg prices go up, geopolitical instability goes up. People buy more sad songs. It's counter-cyclical. If I could invest in a melancholy ETF, I would. It's the only thing that survives a stagflationary environment.
Of course you've already modeled the melancholy ETF. What's in it? Major labels with deep catalogs of breakup albums? Spotify? The company that makes black nail polish?
Diversified portfolio. Universal Music Group for the catalog rights. Spotify for the distribution. Whatever pharmaceutical company makes the antidepressants people take while streaming the songs, that's the hedge. And then a small, high-risk position in whatever platform Gen Z uses to cry publicly. Right now, that's TikTok, but you've got to be ready to pivot to the next thing. Maybe it's whatever Blue Sky becomes. Maybe it's a decentralized, autonomous organization where people just post pictures of rain.
A Tao of sadness. Christ. All right, but if we're doing the full taxonomy, and we promised we would, where does Maud Gone rank? You put it next to I'm Not Okay, I Promise last segment, but that feels off to me. My Chemical Romance is performative sadness as armor. It's theatrical, it's communal, it's we're all not okay together and we're going to scream it. Car Seat Headrest is performative sadness as paralysis. It's I'm on the floor of my apartment and I've been here for 6 hours and I'm not sure I'll ever get up. And also, I'm going to document this in real time.
Right. So MCR is the Dionysian sadness ritual. Collective catharsis. Car Seat Headrest is, what, the depressive realism school? I'm not going to pretend this gets better. I'm just going to describe the texture of the carpet while I wait for nothing?
It's the difference between Tennyson and, say, Sylvia Plath. Tennyson's Maud ends with the speaker deciding to go fight in a war. It's a redemption arc, however unhinged. Plath just describes the bell jar descending. Car Seat Headrest is Plath for people who read Wikipedia summaries of Plath in high school and never recovered. The song doesn't build to anything. It just continues. For 8 minutes. That's the structural innovation. The length is the sadness. It's saying this feeling doesn't resolve in 3.5 minutes. It resolves never. So we're going to sit here.
And it works. It works commercially. That's the wild part. A 2015 Bandcamp release from a guy who named his band after a seating preference becomes a TikTok staple a decade later. The market found it. The sadness arbitrageurs, the teenagers with impeccable taste, they excavated it from the depths of indie obscurity and turned it into a sadness benchmark. Now you can't be properly sad without knowing Maud Gone. It's the new Hallelujah. Except Leonard Cohen at least had the decency to be dead before the overexposure peaked.
Cohen's not dead enough to escape the algorithm, trust me. But you're right about the excavation. The kids are doing the work of archivists. They're digging through Rate Your Music top lists and MU charts from 2014 and pulling out the most devastated sounding artifacts they can find. It's like a generation collectively decided that the mainstream sadness products were too polished, too compromised, and they had to go off the grid to find the pure stuff, the free-range, artisanal, small-batch melancholy.
Farm-to-table sadness, locally sourced grief. The CSA box of sorrow arrives, and it's just a zine and a cassette tape and a note that says, "This one's about the Interstate 5."
And the note is handwritten in pencil and slightly smudged. That's the branding.
Okay, but here's my sincere question, and I mean this without irony because I think it matters. Is this bad? If the sadness market is eternal and the format just changes and people are always going to need a mod to project their feelings onto, is there any meaningful difference between getting it from a communal folk song in 1650 and a car seat headrest track on a smartphone in 2025? Or are we just being old and shaking our fists at the cloud, the literal cloud, the server farm, because the kids aren't sad the way we were sad?
I think the difference is, and I'm going to sound like exactly the kind of Marxist you think I am, the difference is who owns the means of sadness production. The folk song wasn't owned by anyone. The Tennyson poem was owned by Tennyson and his publisher, but the copyright eventually expired, and now it's just air. Maud Gone is owned by a label, streamed on a platform that takes a 30% cut, and served to you by an algorithm that's optimized for engagement, not catharsis. The sadness itself hasn't changed. The enclosure of the commons of sadness has. You used to be sad for free. Now you're sad on a subscription basis, and your sadness is being monetized by 3 different intermediaries before it reaches your ears.
But Will Toledo made the thing. He's a real person who felt a real feeling and made a real song. And now he gets paid. Not much, because streaming, but something. That's not enclosure. That's a market. A functioning one, even. Creator creates, consumer consumes, platform connects. That the platform is extractive is a separate problem from whether the sadness itself is authentic or useful.
I'll give you that. And I'll even grant that Maud Gone is a genuinely good piece of art. The nod to Tennyson isn't pretentious name-dropping. He's engaging with the same themes, the same obsession, the same, I can't stop thinking about this person even though it's destroying me. The line, I don't want to go insane, but I don't want to be sane either. That's just Maud Part 1, Section 22 in a t-shirt. Tennyson's version is, but the box is the one constant. The container for sadness might change. A poem, a folk ballad, an 8-minute lo-fi track, a 15-second TikTok. But the shape of the container is always the same. A person, alone with an absence, trying to make that absence into something they can look at without being destroyed by it. Maud isn't a person in any of these works. Maud is a name for the whole. Tennyson's Maud is barely described. She's a voice, a hand, a shadow. Will Toledo's Maud is a memory of a song reference. Both of them are singing to an empty room and hoping the echo sounds like an answer.
And the room always echoes. That's the business model. As long as there are empty rooms, there will be people singing in them, and other people paying to listen at the door. It's the one industry that no amount of deregulation or re-regulation or creative destruction can touch. The sadness market is perfectly efficient, perfectly eternal, and perfectly human.
So what you're saying is, everything is Maud.
Everything is Maud. Always has been.
All right, we'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. Or do. Maud wouldn't care either way.